Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 64 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I am ready and excited for another riveting episode of Unsolved.
That's good.
See how fired up I am about that?
You're fired up. You're pumped. You're
Pumped.
excited.
I'm ready to go.
Mr. Harley, dude.
Gibby is wearing a t-shirt today. It's throwing me off.
Well, I got to keep things, exciting around here.
Well, let's not get crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't need to be too exciting.
Yeah.
I just don't normally see you in a t-shirt.
I know.
You're usually in coming straight from work when we tape. So.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, Gibbs, we have some new Patreon supporters.
Oh, I like that.
So let's give shout outs. We had Wendy Harris, Julie Davison,
Okay.
Carissa Cortez, Jonathan Hagar.
Sammy Hagar's brother.
Boy, maybe. That'd be cool, right?
It would be cool.
Little Van Halen influence.
I can't drive 55.
We had Brent King, Jude Ann.
Hey, Jude.
And then just Ann jumped out at our highest level.
Thanks, Ann.
And then Leanne Anderson.
Thanks, Leanne.
We got to run on the Anns here.
We do.
We had Lark.
Lark, what's up, Mr. Scandinavian?
Is that what you think?
This one I'm going with.
Just because of the name?
Yeah.
It's probably like a dude from Jersey. Or it could be a woman. I have no idea from that. Just Lark.
Yeah.
J. Crew.
Spelled
differently, but
still pretty cool.
It is pretty
Probably doesn't have a problem getting a table.
Hey, can I make a reservation for J. Crew?
Is right.
Alina Chong Lieber.
We'll just leave her where she's at.
She went with all three names there.
Yeah.
Claire Humphrey.
Thank you.
Felicity.
I like that name, though.
Might be the show.
Could be.
We don't know. Candy.
Just Candy.
Just
That's all
Candy.
you need. If your name's Candy, all you need is just to say Candy.
And then just Lisa.
Yeah.
We had Jenna Thorarison.
Hey, Jenna.
And Jenna's awesome. She's left us some voicemails. We
Yeah.
interact with her on email a lot. We had Emily Heesh,
Hey, Emily.
Gabby,
Yep. Talkative.
and Rebecca Hirschkoff.
Well, thank you, Rebecca.
So awesome support through Patreon. And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs,
Okay.
this week we selected Carol C.
Our buddy Carol.
And we met Carol at CrimeCon last year.
We really did, man. I
Hung out with her for quite a bit. Drank beers.
Yeah.
Got to know her pretty well, and she's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see her again
Sure we will.
at the upcoming CrimeCon. So we appreciate that long-time support. We appreciate the new Patreon support. And we had a lot of PayPal support, too. So I want to give some shout-outs there. We had Julie Davison, who kind of doubled up
Thank you.
on Patreon and PayPal.
Double dip.
Ann Meyer.
Thanks, Ann.
And then Kayla Nelson made one of the biggest donations that we've ever had.
She came out big, didn't she?
Yep. She went big and didn't go home. Is that how you say it? It's go big or go home, but
Yeah.
she did go big.
So she didn't have to
So
go
she
home.
didn't have to go home.
She's staying right where she's at, wherever that is.
Colleen Hartshorn
Thanks, Colleen.
and Gayla Kyle.
Thanks, Gayla.
So a lot of support on PayPal as well. We really appreciate it. Goes a long way towards helping us continue to put out the podcast. And I never want to leave out our friends on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We get a lot of support on there. A lot of people retweeting, sharing our Facebook post. It goes a long way towards helping new people find the show.
It really does.
All right. At the same time that this episode is out, there's a brand new episode of True Crime All the Time. We're talking about the infamous mass murderer, Richard Speck. Speck killed 8 student nurses in 1966. And we get into it, Gibbs. We go into Speck's childhood. What kind of issues did he have? And then you get into the details of the murders. And then there's some very interesting stuff that occurs while Speck is in prison. And then even after he dies, there's some strange things that come up. So definitely check out that episode. And we have to give a big shout out to Lindsay Skolaric for her help in the writing and research of this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lindsay.
All right, Gibbs, can we dive right in?
Let's dive in.
We're talking about the Yuba County 5 or the Yuba City 5. You might see it different ways. I think Yuba is both a city and a county. But we're going to start off talking about a man named Gary Mathias. Gary was born October 15th, 1952. He disappeared on February 24th, 1978, at the age of 25. Gary's body has never been found, and to this day, he's considered missing. And we're talking 40 years. It's been over 40 years.
It's a long time, man.
This is a very long time. And I think most people would say it's safe to make the assumption that Gary is deceased because of the amount of time that has passed. So Gary served in the Army in the early 1970s, and he was stationed in Germany. And while he was serving in the Army, he developed a pretty serious drug problem. This eventually led to a diagnosis for Gary of schizophrenia. And as soon as he was diagnosed, he received a psychiatric discharge from the Army. So after being discharged, Gary moved back home to Yuba and moved in with his parents. Gary had a very serious struggle with treating his schizophrenia. He was arrested twice for assault. He had a number of episodes which put him in the hospital, and he would get treatment at the local VA hospital. And by 1978, he was considered to be stable enough to be treated on an outpatient basis. He was regularly taking a number of drugs. One was called Stelazine, and the other was called Cogentin. I don't know if I'm saying those right, Gibbs, but that's what I'm going with.
I think it's funny that you're asking me.
It is, but I'd like you to share in the fact that if I'm wrong,
that's true.
You would be wrong too. Because I feel like I'm on the limb.
I could use my phonics skills if you want me to.
I should, but see, that's the problem. I've already said them. I should have had you say them first.
Oh, you think I couldn't have done it without you?
Yeah, the fact that I've already done it.
You plowed the road. I got you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what are we going to be able to tell from that? I've already laid it out there how I said it.
Yeah.
But with Gary taking these drugs, he was considered by the doctors that were treating him to be an amazing success story. This case that they kind of held up and said, look what we've done. He received monthly disability pay from the Army, but he also worked. He was an assistant manager at his stepfather's gardening business. All right, so that's Gary Mathias. Gary also had 4 friends that he regularly hung out with. So this was a group of 5 that were pretty close.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But it was also a group of 5 that were all considered to have some level of mental disability.
Yeah, some form of challenge.
Yeah, various levels.
Yeah.
Among the 5. So there was a man named Bill Sterling, who was 29 years old, Jack Hewitt, 24, Ted Weir, 32, and Jack Madruga, 30. So this group made up the other 4 in addition to Gary, and they were known around the city. They actually had a nickname. People around the city called these 5 the boys.
Here comes the boys.
Here comes the boys. These guys were always together. And just like Gary, the other 4 all lived at home with their parents. They all loved sports. And that's really what they did a lot of the time when they got together.
Yeah, just hanging out, watching any sports that was on TV at that time, and, maybe playing some football or something out, or pick up basketball out in the yard.
Yeah, I think it was a big part of their bond, right? This love of sports, watching sports, playing sports. And you mentioned basketball, and that was a game that they especially loved. Not only to watch, but to play. The 5 of them played on a team together called the Gateway Gators. And this was a team sponsored by a local group for the mentally disabled. And it was on Saturday, February 25th, 1978, that the Gators were scheduled to play the first of a series of games in a tournament. This tournament was actually sponsored by the Special Olympics. So this wasn't a ragtag thing, Gibbs. I mean, this was an organized
event,
structured. The winners of the tournament were going to receive a free week's vacation in LA. So all five were very excited for this game that they were going to play in the next day. You know, some of the guys laid out their uniforms. They were getting ready the night before.
You do that today.
I do.
Just for work. You lay out
my uniform for work.
That's right.
For when I go to Foot Locker.
And you know somebody from Foot Locker listening right now going, son of a bitch.
It was the only job that I could think of where you kind of wear a sports uniform.
You've already isolated us from carnies.
Yeah.
Now you're taking us from our Foot Locker fans.
We got no more carny audience at all. Or maybe, Gibbs, we're gathering a whole carny following because of how much we talk about carnies.
Or we're gathering the following carny followers because they're going to come after you for trashing them.
You said the following carny followers.
I know. I just let it roll. Sometimes I can't stop myself. I just got to let it happen.
Please, carnies, don't come after me.
They're going to strap you to the scrambler and just let it roll.
And just let it go at one after the other.
Until you puke yourself dead, man.
And that night before, the group had decided that they were going to drive to a basketball game to watch. And this was a game between University of California, Davis and Chico State. So we're in California.
We are.
The game is at Chico. Madruga and Matthias were the only two of the five that had driver's licenses. And that night, it would be Jack Madruga that was going to drive the group. This was about a 50-mile drive north from Yuba to Chico.
So a good hour.
A good hour, yeah, depending on traffic. I'm not sure this is an area of California where the traffic is brutal, but I don't know that much about California. We'll call it an hour. It was a fairly cool night for California. The men wore light jackets, and they all piled into Jack's turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego.
Well, there's a vision for you.
Mercury Montego.
Is that a vision or what? Turquoise and white. Reminds me of a tourist stopping point with those turquoise jewels and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I just don't... Turquoise and white. That's just not... That's a 60s color.
It's definitely not today's color.
You're not going to find that today on a Ford sedan, I don't think.
I don't think you will.
You're definitely not going to find it on a Mercury because Mercury doesn't exist anymore. It's gone much of the way of some of my other favorites. Pontiac. I was always a Pontiac guy.
Did you like Pontiac, did you?
Mm-hmm. I've had Grand Ams, Grand Prix.
Yeah. I can see you being kind of like the...
Firebird. Was that Pontiac Firebird?
That was the female version of the Trans Am.
My wife did have one. No, I take that back. She didn't. She had a Camaro.
Did she have a Camaro?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was red with T-tops. It was badass.
They're the good old days, man. With T-tops, man. You don't see T-tops out there either.
I don't like all my hair blowing in the wind.
Because you got a lot of it. Is that what happened?
It blew off.
It all blew off one day?
It's exactly what happened. I blame my wife.
Yeah, I mean, the T-tops became famous because Smokey and the Bandit. They had to. They had to be the one that sold that.
I mean, who's cooler than Burt Reynolds and Smokey and the Bandit?
Well, he did get Sally.
Yep. So let's get back to the five. They made it to the game, and they stayed to the end. After the game was over, they drove a short distance to the Chico State campus. They stopped at a market called Bears Market, and they bought one Hostess cherry pie. I love those little Hostess pies, man.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a pie guy, but...
Put those in the microwave for a little bit.
You just
I like
that.
the apple.
Do you?
Yeah. So one Hostess cherry pie, something called a Langendorf lemon pie, which I'm sure somebody's going to say, how in the hell can you not know what a Langendorf lemon pie is?
Well, we don't.
But I don't. One Snickers bar, one Marathon bar, which this one grabbed me.
I love Marathon bars.
Because I don't know if I've told you, but Marathon is my all-time favorite candy bar.
Yeah, they're good. I like them.
I was really bummed when they stopped making it years ago. I don't know how long. It's been a long time.
It has been, yeah.
Since they've made Marathon. They bought 2 Pepsis and 1.5 quarts of milk.
It's kind of different, huh? Quart and a half.
1.5 quarts.
Give me 1.5 quarts, please. Maybe they're going to mix the Pepsi with the 1.5 quarts to do the
Like
Laverne and Shirley. Yeah.
I like where your mind's headed.
I know.
Have you ever tried that? That sounds nasty.
I made it to try it when I was that age watching that, but I didn't follow through.
I mean, Pepsi is great.
Didn't look good.
I love a cold Pepsi. Why would I want to pour it into milk or milk into Pepsi? It don't seem right.
No, I'm sure somebody's tried it. They'll let us know.
So the timing of this stop at Bears Market is important. It was just before closing time, which was 10 p.m. And the store clerk would later remember the 5 coming in because she was slightly annoyed at the fact that they were coming in so close to closing that she had to stop doing what she was doing, shutting down the store. But this store clerk would be the very last confirmed sighting of the 5. It would be the next morning that the parents of the missing men noticed that they had not come home. So they started calling around, and the parents confirmed that they hadn't stayed at one of the 5's house. So they were able to rule that out. So they had to notify police. They were worried. So you had police from Butte and Yuba counties come together. They started searching the route that the boys most likely would have taken from Chico to Yuba, but they didn't find any signs of any of the men. It was not until Tuesday, February 28th, that Madruga's Mercury Montego was found. And this occurred when a Plumas National Forest ranger reported the car to the local police. He apparently had seen the car earlier, but he didn't realize the significance of the car until he started seeing reports of the missing men, which included a description of the car. The car was located about 70 miles from Chico on a rarely used mountain road. So this was a road that was highly elevated, and it was said that snowdrifts there could get up as high as 15 feet tall.
That's
a hell of a snowdrift.
That's a heck of a snowdrift there, man.
The other thing about this road was it was nowhere near part of the direct route between Yuba and Chico. The road contained a lot of ruts, a lot of potholes. This was not a well-kept road. Police searched the car, and they found evidence that suggested that the men had been back inside the car after their stop at the market, because they found wrappers, they found empty cans, they found a lot of the things that they had bought at the market. The other thing that they found was a folded map of California, as well as flyers and programs from the basketball game. So this is how they're piecing all this together, right? They know they went to the basketball game. They found programs from the game.
Yeah.
They know they stopped at this market. The clerk verifies that.
And they find some of the stuff they bought in the car.
Yep. The car was on the side of the road, and the police could tell that the driver had spun the tires a number of times. But even so, the police were able to easily push the car out of the snow. It only took 2 police officers. So you have to think about that, right? So what if they got stuck in the snow? They're trying to get out and the tires are just spinning, but yet police know that just a couple of the guys could have got out and pushed, and they would have easily been able to get out. This is going to come into play in some of the things we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, I mean, that's to the what if, whys, how come kind of stuff.
The mystery.
Yeah.
Right. That adds to the mystery for sure. They didn't find the keys in the vehicle, and this initially led investigators to believe that there might have been a problem with the car and that the men took the keys with them as they walked off to find help. Right? So get some help, we'll get back to the car, and then we'll fix it and we'll go. But police quickly dismissed that theory because they were easily able to hotwire it. They had no issue hot wiring this car. And on top of that, the car had a quarter of a tank of gas. So there's a lot of signs here pointing to the fact that the reason they left the car was not because there was a problem with it. And police are thinking it shouldn't have been because they were stuck in the snow, because we easily got it out. And there was 5 of them. So authorities took the car back to the station for a more thorough investigation. They discovered that there was no damage to the car. Even when they got underneath the car, there was no damage to the undercarriage, to the muffler. And they were a little surprised about this because I talked about how bad this road was, the ruts, the potholes. Police theorized that with 5 full-grown adult males sitting in this car, it would have been sitting a little low. They were pretty surprised that there was no damage whatsoever to the underside of the car, probably even more specifically to the muffler. So they thought, either the driver was going very, very slowly, or it was someone driving the car that had a pretty intimate knowledge of the road, which they knew neither of the 2 men that actually had a driver's license should have had, right? This is not a road that they should have known anything about. When they talked to Jack Madruga's parents, they told authorities that there was no way that Jack would have ever let someone else drive his car. And he would have never left the car with the window down and unsecured. Just no way. The parents also confirmed that none of these guys should have had any special knowledge of this road that they were on. Now, the one thing that did come out was regarding Bill Sterling. And it was a story about the fact that 8 years earlier, Bill and his father had gone fishing up on that road. But it was said that Bill didn't enjoy it and he never went back again, even though his father had returned on later trips. And apparently Weir had gone hunting in the same county a few years earlier with some friends, but the area that they went to was farther west than where the car was found. So you have to think about these 5 men and the mental capacity that we alluded to. These were guys that went out with friends occasionally, mostly with each other, stayed overnight at other people's houses, but most of the time they were homebodies. They didn't leave the house very often. So a search for the men was attempted by police, but there was a pretty sizable snowstorm that blew in, which hampered their efforts. They used snowmobiles, but I guess the storm got so bad, some of the searchers almost got lost themselves. So because it was so dangerous, they had to call the search off. That's how bad the snowstorm was. And there would be no trace of any of the 5 men found until the following summer when the snow started to thaw.
It's a long time, man.
It is.
It really, seriously, it's just a long time. Even in those type of conditions.
And it wouldn't be until June 4th, 1978, when a group of motorcyclists rode up to a trailer maintained by the Forest Service. And this was at a campsite off that road, almost 20 miles from where the car had been found. And these motorcyclists, they smelled something horrible coming from the trailer. And so they decided to investigate. They immediately saw that one of the windows to the trailer was broken. And when they entered the front door of the trailer, they found the decaying body of Ted Weir.
There's a sight, man. You imagine? You kind of know it's going to be something bad.
From the smell.
Probably thinking animal, right?
Yeah, I think naturally you wouldn't think human right off the bat, but it would be a shock to the system for sure. Weir's body was found on a bed, wrapped up tightly in 8 sheets that were wrapped around his entire body and head. 8 sheets.
Yeah, that's like trying to make a homemade blanket or something, but that's a lot of effort.
His feet were extremely frostbitten. When his body was found, he had lost a significant amount of weight. And judging by his beard growth, they thought that he had been alive for maybe as long as 13 weeks since the last time he had shaved. The autopsy results showed that he died of starvation and hypothermia. And they found some personal effects on a table next to the bed. They found his wallet with some cash in it, a nickel ring engraved with Ted, and a gold necklace. And all of these would be confirmed to be his. There was a partially melted candle and a gold watch that was missing its crystal. But when his parents were asked about these items, they claimed that they didn't belong to him. He was wearing a velour shirt and lightweight pants. He didn't have any shoes on.
You like velour shirts.
I do not.
You do. You sit there and play with it all the time, moving it up and down, changing the color of
Do
it.
they even make velour anymore?
You wish they
That
did.
is 1970s type
You
stuff.
would buy it if they did. Probably purple, too.
Purple velour.
Yeah, go with that Harley you got.
Inside this trailer, there was a fireplace, but the authorities figured out that no fire had been lit, even though there were plenty of options inside the trailer to start one. There were matches, there were paperback books found in the trailer. All of this could have easily been used to start a fire, but they weren't. They found heavy forestry clothing in the trailer. They found a dozen sea ration cans that had been opened and eaten. But outside, they found a storage shed with a locker holding enough rations to feed the men for over a year. So this is very, very odd, right? We know that he was wearing just a light velour shirt, lightweight pants, but yet there's some very heavy clothing inside the trailer that he never put on.
Yeah, that he could have just grabbed a jacket or, like you said, even he could have grabbed a jacket, could have started a fire, anything.
And he doesn't check the storage shed, which had enough food, it was said, to sustain 4 men
Yeah.
for a year, let alone one.
Yeah.
But even more than that, there was a butane tank outside that, if turned on, could have been used to turn on the heat inside the trailer.
Yeah, if they knew how to operate something, which should have been fairly simple, right? Turn the valve on outside and then hit the pilot on the inside, they could have stayed nice and toasty, I guess.
Right. And it's the reason why, I mean, obviously we're discussing all these facets, but it's the reason why we made special mention or put emphasis on the fact that the mental capacity of these 5 individuals was on the low side.
Yeah, but 2 of them could drive, so you figured that if you're able to drive, you've got to have some form of, the state deems you okay to drive. You should be able to, manage some things, like turning on a furnace.
You would think so, but it's a part of this mystery. Authorities also realized that Weir had not been alone the entire time in the trailer. And one of the reasons they came to that conclusion was that his feet were so bad with frostbite. They thought it would have been very difficult for him to wrap himself up in the sheets the way that he was wrapped. So they thought there had to have been somebody else there that did that. Also, they found Gary Mathias's shoes in the trailer, which suggested that he had been there. The cans of food, the rations, had been opened with a P38 can opener. And this is something that Gary would have learned how to use in the Army. Now, I don't know how much learning, Gibbs, it takes to figure out how to use that can opener.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of difficult. If you'd never seen one and knew how to operate it, it might cause you a little issue.
Well, I've never seen one. I've never operated one. I'd like to think that I'm smart enough to figure it out, but maybe not.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm giving myself way too much credit.
Yeah.
But Jack Madruga was also an Army veteran, so you have to factor that in as well. One theory that police had was that because they never found Weir's shoes, and they did find the shoes of Gary Mathias, and they knew that Weir's shoes were larger than Gary's, they theorized that maybe Gary took those shoes, and left to try to find help. Now, after the discovery of Weir's body, the search resumed for the other 4 men. And just the very next day, they found remains that would be later identified as Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling. They were found about 11 miles from where the car had been on the opposite side of the road. And these bodies, Gibbs, they'd been out in the elements. They had been scavenged by animals.
Yeah, terrible.
And because of that, the bodies were scattered. But autopsies would reveal on both bodies that they died of hypothermia. And Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga, they were very close. Probably the 2 of them were closer than they were with any of the other 3.
Yeah, good buddies.
And so because of that, police theorized that they would not leave each other's side.
Yeah, like if we were in a snowstorm and days away from shelter and I couldn't move on anymore because my ankle was busted. Right. You would stay.
I would eat you so that I could survive.
Why'd you have to go there, man? Why couldn't you said, I'll build a little shelter around you, get a little fire going, then I'll head out. But you went right. I'll just eat you.
I was thinking straight to that movie Alive.
I don't even want to know what part you start with. I don't even want to know.
I would do whatever I had to do to survive.
I don't want to know. Just make sure you cook me all the way through, man.
2 days later, while they're still searching, Jack Hewitt's father found a backbone under a bush 2 miles away from the trailer. And imagine this, Gibbs. The backbone turned out to be his son's.
That'd be rough. That'd be really rough.
A father finding his missing son, finding a piece of his missing son.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that. They also found his shoes and his jeans very close nearby. One day after that, a sheriff found a skull that belonged to Hewitt. And when the autopsy was performed, it was determined that he also died of hypothermia. Northwest of the trailer, about a quarter mile away, searchers found 3 Forest Service blankets and a rusted flashlight by the road. So they found 4 of the 5 men, but Gary Mathias had not been found. But we talked in the beginning about Gary's condition, his schizophrenia. And because of this, he took medication. And we know because of how much time had passed, Gary wouldn't have his medication, right? Even if he had it with him, he would have run out pretty quickly. So one of the things that the authorities do is they send pictures of Gary to all of the mental institutions in California on the off chance that maybe he had already been picked up. But because he didn't have his medication, because he hadn't taken it for a long time, maybe he didn't know who he was or couldn't, maybe he was sitting somewhere in a hospital and nobody knew who he was. I don't know. It seems kind of unlikely to me. It seems like there was some way to ID him, but he was in the military after all.
It's true.
But I guess they were trying everything. But this didn't lead to him being found, right? We've already talked about Gary's never been found. Now, there was a man by the name of Joseph Shawns who may have seen the men that night because he was driving on the same mountain road around 5:30 p.m. He ended up getting his car stuck, and as he was trying to push it out, he suffered a heart attack. And the place where his car was stuck was just about 50 yards away from where Jack's car would be found. So Joseph has this heart attack and he gets back into his vehicle. The engine's running. He's trying to keep himself warm. And he's hoping that someone's going to come along and help. And apparently he was in the car for 6 hours until all of a sudden he saw headlights coming up from behind him. When he looked out of the car, he saw the car that was the source of the headlights parked behind him. And he could see a group of people standing around it. Now, what Joseph said was that one of the individuals looked to him like it was a woman holding a baby, But you have to figure, and I think he would even admit, because of the condition that he was in, and so much pain.
Sure.
He was almost delirious probably by this point.
Yeah.
So he may have thought he saw that, but I think he would probably even admit there's no way to be sure. So he attempted to call out for help to this group, but he said that when he did, they immediately stopped talking and they shut off their headlights.
Which is weird.
Well, very strange. Now, later he would say that he saw more lights behind him, which he believed to be flashlights. So he called out again, and then all of a sudden the flashlights went out, and no one came to help him. He later says that he thought he saw a pickup truck parked behind him for a minute and then drive off down the road. But again, he tells police he can't be 100% sure because he felt like he was going in and out at this point. Now, eventually, Joseph's car would run out of gas, and his pain level started to go down enough so that he could walk down the road. And he makes it to a lodge called the Mountain House that he had passed on his way up the road. And Gibbs, this was an 8-mile walk.
Yeah, so maybe 2 hours walk, 2-3 hour.
How long does it take you to walk 8 miles?
Well, you figure you're walking fast pace. What?
Maybe you're right.
3.5, 4 miles an hour.
Yeah, maybe you're right. A couple hours probably.
Yeah. No, this is snow and stuff too. So
probably even longer.
And he just had a heart attack, so it might take him a little bit longer.
I don't know why I'm questioning you. Yeah, you're right. But think about that. This guy's had a heart attack. He's been stranded in his car for who knows how long. And he's able to summon up the strength to make an 8-mile walk in horrible conditions. But again, what choice does he have at this point?
Exactly. He's trying to survive.
And he's in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So he makes it to this lodge, and he's able to get the manager of the lodge to take him home. But on the way home, they pass the turquoise and white Mercury Montego. And this is where Joseph would say that he believed the voices were coming from. There would be one other notable report that would come from a woman who worked at a store in Brownsville. And this is about 30 miles from where the car had been found. But it is a store that they would have been able to get to if they would have been able to continue down that road. So it was on the path. And this woman saw flyers with pictures of the men a couple of weeks later, and she reached out to the authorities and she told them that 4 of the men had stopped into the store 2 days after they disappeared. But she said they arrived in a red pickup truck. And apparently the owner of the store also saw them and was able to corroborate her account. The woman told police that she recognized that these men were from out of town. They weren't from around that area. According to her, Hewitt and Sterling were in the phone booth outside of the store while the other 2 men came inside. And police took this account very seriously. They considered her a credible witness. I mean, not to mention the fact that she wasn't there alone. You had the owner of the store echoing the same story.
Right.
I mean, he even went on to say that he thought he remembered Weir and Hewitt coming into the store, buying burritos, chocolate milk, and soft drinks. Weir's brother would later tell the LA Times that he believed his brother would never drive a different car to Brownsville, and that although the owner's description of the account seemed to be in character with what they would buy, it was out of character for his brother to make a phone call, because Weir's brother said that he couldn't do it, to the point that usually someone else would have to dial the phone for him. So we talked about the fact that Gary has never been found. His parents even enlisted the help of a local well witcher.
Getting technical now, man.
Well, you're going to have to explain what a well witcher is.
That's taking that Y-shaped branch that has to come off of the property where you're at, right? And you take that stick and you hold both ends of the Y in your hand and you allow it to move,
guide you
to where you need to be.
To where the water is, right?
Where the water is, yep. In this case, he's going to use it to guide him elsewhere.
Yeah, so he took his divining rod, I think is what they call it, and apparently said that he had fixed it so that it would pick up traces of human remains. So we're getting into a little bit of strange territory here, but apparently this guy led searchers to a deserted cabin that was not too far from where the car was found. In the cabin, all they found was a gray disposable cigarette lighter less than a mile northwest of the trailer. And all of the family said that none of these men would have carried a lighter. It was also discovered that Gary Mathias knew some people in Forbestown, which is located in between Chico and Yuba. And I think the theory here, Gibbs, is that the road that you would take to get to Forbestown is very easy to miss.
Yeah. Didn't you thinking they turned off the wrong road?
Right. And that if you did miss the road to Forbestown, you would maybe end up on this mountain road where the car was ultimately found. So they're supposed to be driving from Chico to Yuba. Forbestown is on the way. So one of the theories is that somebody made, Gary or whoever said, hey, let's go see these people in Forbestown. They got lost.
I mean, it's plausible.
Plausible. Everything's plausible, right?
Everything.
Everything. So I guess we have to talk about now, what happened to these men. So we've mentioned that all 5 of the men had varying degrees of mental disabilities. You'll see in the research that it's kind of all over the map. Sometimes they're described as, very low functioning. Sometimes they're described as only having a, mental capacity that's, somewhat lower than normal or than most, let's say. So again, it's a part of the story. We know Gary had schizophrenia that he was being treated for. And I think you talked about the fact of, 2 of these guys had driver's licenses that were issued to them by the state. So they obviously passed the required tests. You have to think about, why would their parents allow them to drive as a group 50 miles to this basketball game if there were any concerns that they would make it back, right? I mean, solely based on their mental capacity.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine anybody letting anybody go a long distance or any distance away from home if they were concerned.
Yeah, so I don't think their parents were concerned. I think they had probably done things like this in the past. In fact, I think their parents would say that, these were responsible individuals. And then you get to the man in the car. He's in the middle of a heart attack. You have to assume that he's going maybe in and out of consciousness at points. The pain he described as pretty intense. So you just don't know how much of what he thought he saw or heard was real. I mean, why would a woman be standing with a baby out on that road in the freezing cold?
It just doesn't add up.
That part is very strange to me. Now, what I can wrap my head around is that maybe these 5 men did hear him and maybe they got scared. I mean, they didn't know what was going on and they got scared and they took off. Now, the parents would say that in addition to being responsible, I mean, these guys were helpful. They were the kind of guys that always wanted to help others in need. So, I don't know, kind of at odds with that one as well. If they heard somebody crying out for help, according to their parents, you would think they would have tried to help the person.
Maybe they just couldn't hear the guy.
Maybe.
know?
But it all goes back to me, Gibbs, to the fact that you just can't come up with a reasonable explanation for why the group abandoned the car. To me, everything goes back to that. Right? It had gas.
And why not go back down the road? Why not follow the road back down from where you came? Instead of going to an area you don't know of, why not follow it down, stay warm in the morning till the morning, then get out and follow that road back down.
But that's the thing. Knowing that the car had gas, they didn't even get back inside and keep warm until it ran out of gas. Right? So that's one thing. The other thing is knowing how easily the two police officers were able to push the car out. Why couldn't they think of that? Why couldn't they get that done? I mean, these were not individuals that were, dressed for mountain hiking. Right? We talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, they were going to the basketball game.
Light jackets, light pants. And one fact is that the 4 men that were found in relatively the same path towards or near the trailer. But let's go back to that trailer for a minute. I know we touched on it for a little bit. It was very strange. 2 of the men we mentioned were Army veterans. So you would at least think that they would have the basic survival skills and should have a little bit more than that.
Well, they should. With both of them being, Army veterans, you'd think that they would have, above average skills on survival.
Yeah, because they would have received actual training. But to me, with or without survival skills, advanced, basic, whatever you want to call it, there are very basic things that were inside the trailer. Many things that could have started a fire, heavy clothing that they could have put on and didn't. I don't know how somebody would miss the propane tank or, the tank and think, okay, that's going to power something. And then to not check the shed for available resources when if they would have found a whole stockpile of food. I mean, these are things that are just baffling to me. I mean, when you're in a survival situation, you're checking everything.
Oh, yeah, man. I'd be knocking down any and everything in that place and around it just to see if I had anything that could be useful.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think for me, that's one of the biggest mysteries in this whole thing, the trailer. The fact that at least 2 of them were probably in the trailer and couldn't figure out how to survive, given all of the things that were inside of that trailer that we've talked about. Now, the other thing is they could have made it probably to the lodge, the same lodge that Joseph Sean's made it to, because it seems to me that they were traveling the same direction as Joseph Sean. So my assumption is they would have had to have passed the lodge just like he did and known it was there. And then you talk about Forbstown. Now, how likely is it that this group of individuals traveling later at night on their way from Chico back to Yuba would just all of a sudden make the decision that they're going to take a detour and go visit some people that I think only Gary knew in Forbstown? That to me would be a little strange. Not to say that it's not plausible, because it is. We talked about how excited they are for these basketball games that they have coming up tomorrow. Heck, they've already laid out their uniforms. I just can't imagine that they would take this detour and make the night that much later. And then you talk about this account at the store in Brownsville. And I'm really torn over this. You have 2 different people corroborating a story that they saw some of the men. But the questions I have is, why some? Why would they leave Gary behind? I just don't see that. Why would they stop in? First of all, where'd they get this pickup truck? And if they had the pickup truck, why did they stop in and buy some snacks and then go back up to the road? And where's this pickup truck found? It's not, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not found, so it's
a very strange story.
Yeah.
I mean, now, if they would have been found somewhere else, okay, maybe. But they're found in relatively the same place that the car was, right? Not too far from the car. So obviously, if they went 30 miles to Brownsville, bought milk and pop and some snacks, then they drove back to where the car was and got out, then somebody came along and took the pickup truck and they walked and died. I mean, that part is just, I'm having a hard time reconciling that account. The only other thing is that somebody picked them up and forced them to go with them to Brownsville. But even that doesn't make any sense, because then what? They allowed them to buy stuff, take them back to the site where the car was.
Doesn't make any sense.
And then make them get out and drive off. I just don't get it. And where's the motive for kidnapping these 4 men and not Gary? And they didn't ask for a ransom. They didn't ask for anything.
No.
They take him to the store, let him buy stuff, and then take him back. I don't know.
There you go. How was that for torture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take that.
Take that.
Take your snacks and your soft drinks and get out.
Yeah.
So it is very, very strange, but it's the mystery of this whole thing. And then, you talk about Gary and the fact that his body was never found. I think there are some very plausible explanations to that. Number one, his body, like some of the other ones, could have been, ravaged by animals, scattered, and they've just never, found any of his body parts. To me, it just depends on how far an animal would have taken it, right? Maybe outside of the search grid.
Yeah. I mean, anything's possible. You don't know how far he got. You don't know how far.
Well, that's the other thing. Maybe he made it a lot farther away than some of the others. I still don't understand why they would have split up at all.
Yeah.
They're 5 friends.
I don't know why you ever leave the car, man. Or why would you leave the road?
Or if you do, why wouldn't you do everything you're going to do from there on forward as a group? Why would 2 go this way, 2 go that way?
Yeah.
That part I don't understand at all.
Yeah.
There's safety in numbers and all that kind of thing. But it's a baffling case.
It is. It just makes you wonder why this, why that, how come?
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't add up. So
it's a very sad case.
it is sad.
Because obviously 4 people lost their lives for sure.
Sure.
Most likely Gary is deceased after 40 years.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a homicide, but you can't rule that out either.
No, because there's just enough what ifs out there to make,
But that's it. That is the case of the Yuba County 5 or the Yuba City 5, however you want to say it.
Yeah, it is.
The Yuba 5.
Yuba.
I don't know. I don't know if they'll ever solve this mystery. So much time has gone by. I just don't know what else they would find that would help them figure it out at this point.
Unless somebody comes up and says, hey, I was driving that red truck, or my grandpa
I did this.
left me a note, said he drove a red truck this night and did this and this.
Right. On his deathbed, he confessed to, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Gibbs, let's do some voicemail.
Let's do that.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Tina Cervantes calling again. I was the one that was traveling all over this green earth for work, and I was calling because I wanted to let you guys know that I finally caught up on everything because I've been traveling so much. I've been all over Northern California. I'm centered in Stockton, California. I've been all over the place. But just recently, last week, my kids and I, we traveled to Seattle, so we flew there and then drove back. And on the way back, we finished up a whole lot of different podcasts, but we definitely finished up yours. We finished up True Crime All the Time and TCAT Unsolved. But I also wanted to let you know about a case that happened in and around our area. It's called they were the Speed Freak Killers. Just a little bit of input. Thank you guys so much for everything. I'm actually heading to San Jose, California today, and while I'm heading there, I'm going to be listening to Criminology. So have a great day, guys, and I'm trying to keep my own time ticking.
She's a traveler.
She's a traveler and trying to keep her own time ticking. Now, you can probably hear in there where I edited that voicemail because it kind of changes tone pretty abruptly.
Okay.
The voicemail was very, very long.
Yeah.
Tina went into great detail about the case.
Oh, okay.
But I had to edit it for time.
Yeah.
So
save it for later.
But we need to look into the Speed Freak killers.
We have to. Yeah. And she travels like Israel Keys.
She does. Somebody should keep an eye on her.
Yeah. Flies there and then drives on her way home.
Just kidding, Tina.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. I just discovered your podcast last week, and I've been binging ever since. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 2-year-old twins, and listening to your podcast is a much-needed break from Elmo. I was so excited to discover that you guys are local. There's one case I know you'll remember, and that's the case of Erica Baker. She was a 9-year-old who went missing from Kettering in 1999. I was the same age as she was when she went missing, and I remember how her disappearance really shook the community. I'd love to hear what you guys can find out about it. Thank you so much for everything you do, guys.
So we got somebody local.
Local.
Just around the corner.
Now, the Erica Baker case, Gibbs, we've had it on our list for a long time.
We have.
It's one of the most famous cases around this area. I've been trying to get you to do it for a long, long time.
You have.
You're reluctant.
A little bit.
But we gotta push forward on it, I think.
Yeah, it's a tough case.
It is a very tough case. But I think people would like hearing about it.
Yeah. I'll have to do it.
Yeah.
Just have to stomach it up and take care of it.
It is. It's a tough one. Especially for us being local and just everything that the community went through around that case.
Right.
I guess that's probably one of the reasons why we haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Hi, y'all. This is Amber Guerrero from Oologah, Oklahoma. Try to say that real fast, Gibby. I just wanted to call and tell you guys how much I love the podcast. I have listened to almost all of the episodes. I listen to them on my commute. I listen to them when I'm outside just sitting on my deck watching my dogs play. I wanted to let you know that if you have any need for some mental health advice or have questions about an upcoming episode, I was willing to give guys some help. One of the unsolved cases here in Oklahoma that you might be interested in is our state fair murders. There's been more than one at more than one time. There's one that they think is solved, and there's a couple that they think are unsolved. Again, Amber Guerrero, Oklahoma. Thanks, guys. I think you're fantastic. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
So, awesome voicemail.
Thanks, Amber.
At first, I thought she was offering you and I mental health therapy or help.
You could use it.
Because she thought we needed it.
Yeah.
But then I figured out, she said we could consult with her if we had questions, which we may do.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had a lot of people. We have so many listeners that are in fascinating fields, like professionals.
We really do.
We've had a lot of people reach out to us and say that they're willing to help. So we may take you up on that.
Just might.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Abby from Colorado Springs, Colorado. I just wanted to call you and tell you that you finally gave me nightmares. So I'm going to take a couple weeks off, but I'll be right back at it once I've recovered. Thanks. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Bye-bye.
Sounds like you need to keep your own time a ticking.
So we gave her nightmares, but she didn't say from which episode.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I'm not sure which one it was.
There were some pretty tough episods.
We've had some rough ones lately.
Yeah, or pretty tough instead of pretty tough.
Purdy? Did you say purdy?
I did.
Like Purdy?
Yeah, had some pretty tough episodes. But
we appreciate the voicemail. But make sure you come back.
Hey, this is Megan. I'm from Indiana. I don't do a lot of contact with you guys online, but I just wanted to thank you so much for your guys' podcast. I have been binge listening to it for about a month now, and I finally just finished everything on criminology, on True Crime All the Time Unsolved, on True Crime All the Time, and y'all are just crazy. Y'all are crazy, but in a good way. So just keep up what you're doing and stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Thank you.
All right. So first of all, Gibbs, we love bingers. We love when people find it and they just binge to catch up.
Binge the heck out of it.
And then I think she summed it up. We're crazy in a good way. I'll take that.
Yeah. I'm a madman.
So that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.